Breaking news, breaking news. The CFP, the revenue split resolution, according to Heather Dinich of ESPN, it's on target to get resolved by the end of the week, even possibly Thursday night. Athletic directors, they're all meeting. They're all meeting with their coaches today and tomorrow. I think there's a couple of different options on the table. G5. The G5 commissioners are meeting tonight, maybe even right now. Are they going to take this deal? We're going to get into it. Breaking news, breaking news. Welcome to college football's peek around the corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football, because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends if you want to support this Rebel Outpost YouTube college football channel with a donation. Hit the $sign. We make a comment. We'll get to you super chat as quick as possible. Welcome. Welcome into the studio that sits on the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend in the chat room and with your phone calls later in the show. We've got a stack show, and I'm going to be honest. We're not even, okay, I'll spend 30 seconds. I'll spend 30 seconds on the round table they had with some senators in Washington, D.C. Nick Saban talked, Manchin talked, Ted Cruz talked, I think Cory Booker. They all talked, and I don't know what to tell you. The leaders of college football understand that the football players need to get paid. They need to get paid. They need to get paid, but they don't want them to become employees. They need to be represented, the student athletes, the players, but they don't want them to be employees. They need a carve out. They need a special carve out from Congress. They need to make it constitutional. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Let me know if something important comes out of that roundtable. That's it. I'm not spending another second on the roundtable. I do understand that people are interested in that, and there are other college football YouTube channels that are going to be covering that, but we're not going to do it. We got breaking news, breaking news. Breaking news, breaking news. ESPN, Heather Dinich, the CFP, the playoffs for 2026 and beyond. Looks like they're on target for resolution when it comes to the revenue split and governance, which is a surprise to me. The governance piece might be resolved by the end of the week. How the playoffs looks like, how you qualify, how many teams, that's not going to be resolved by the end of the week. But the revenue distribution is, it's on target. It's on target. I'm optimistic. I've been this whole time. It's got to get done. There is something new in the reports of this evening in regards to the CFP, in regards to future revenue. There's a little nugget that was dropped. And I'm wondering if anybody in the chat, if anybody in the PATC community picked it up. Interesting. Very, very, very interesting. And we're going to talk about it here at Peek Around the Corner. And now, we've been doing this lately. We're going to continue to do it. We've got to talk college football. We've actually had to talk about the teams that are playing. I did my top 25. I did a special on Ohio State. I did a special on Georgia yesterday. And we're going to start out the show going through the article of Notre Dame. Have they upgraded their wide receiver room? And if they have, I believe the Irish is on their way to the playoffs for 2024. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about the Indiana Hoosiers. We are going to go all over the place, every single live show, or almost everything, single live show. And we're going to be talking about the football teams. The actual football teams that are in spring practice right now. Because I'm all jazzed up. You all know that I have been a big proponent of not only expanding the college football playoffs for democratization, to get everybody more included. I think it's going to make the regular season even more important for more fan bases for a longer time during the season. I think it's going to spread interest. I think it's going to be better for competition. And I think this 12-team playoff format is beautiful. Beautiful. Now maybe I'm going to be proven wrong this year. We shall see. But I think this is the most fascinating college football season in my lifetime. And I'm an old man, so I'm all psyched up. We've been starting to talk about the college football teams, our predictions and everything, and we're going to keep doing it. We're going to start out the show. We'll quickly go through it. We're not going to spend much time on it. Not going to spend much time on it, but we're going to hit the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. But the main story today, CFP is on target for resolution when it comes to the revenue split. Do you believe it? Or don't you believe it? Do you think this is just, what, ESPN hype? Or do you think it's actually going to happen? And then I want to hit upon Dan Wenzel's Yahoo Sports article. He just put it out right before we came on live. It was at the same time of Heather Dinich's breaking news. And I'm going to read the article. And it is everything that I have been telling you about the reporting of Greg Sankey. How people report on Greg Sankey. It illustrates everything I pointed out 2 live shows ago. I'm gonna be blunt with you all, and we even called a live show a couple weeks ago. We called it Bad Cop and Bad Cop. Petiti and Sankey are playing Bad Cop and Bad Cop on this. They both have taken an extreme position on 2 different topics, and they're squeezing everybody at the negotiation table, and this was planned. But Greg Sankey, for whatever reason, nobody can quite pin it on him. Well, actually, Heather Dinich did sort of pin it on him. But I gotta, after we go through the Heather Dinich story, we're gonna hit this Yahoo Sports article, and it illustrates everything I said 2 live shows ago. Before we get to the Fight in Irish, 2024, do you think they're gonna make the playoffs? I do. I think 10-2 is their floor. If they get that wide receiver room, and I think they've improved it. I think they've got enough to go 10-2 to make the playoffs. Let me know if you think they won't, will, where they're going to finish up at the end of the season. But before we get to the Irish and before we get to the main story, the breaking news, Heather Dinich, ESPN, CFP is on target for revenue distribution resolution. Let me say thanks for everybody who's come on in. Jared Jones, thank you, sir. Mr. Buckeye, early peak members. Struthers, Minnesota Seminoles is in the house. The Colorado Buffalo, Richard L. is in the house. Nick Boardman, the Walking Geek. James Foster, Kenner Bowman, Nathan Campbell, College Football Mafia is in the house. Mr. Nathan Brown, 4637 Warrior. Matt Neeson, the Cyclone. Laura Weiss, the Red Raider. KS Bear FN is in the house. John Teal. Bill G, greetings. Flugarians, Raider Vision. Another Red Raider in the house. Skull Ducky, Randy Taylor, JD Turtle. Maryland loves me. Maryland loves me. If that's true, it's the only state in the union that actually loves me. Expedition Greg is in the house. David Schmidt-Key, Hawkeye fan. Iowa will be much improved. If they can keep Cade McNamara healthy, new offensive coordinator, new blood, great defense coming back, even though they lost Dijon Cooper and everything else. But yeah, they're going to be good. And they have a schedule they can work with. The Iowa Hawkeyes. Jimmy, thank you so much for having incredible generosity once again by Jimmy. Thank you, sir. You've gifted a membership for our channel so very much, Jimmy. Once again, you are knighted cloak and dagger. Thank you so much for your generosity. And Nathan Campbell, please say thank you to Jimmy for his generosity. Nathan Campbell, you are knighted cloak and dagger. Congratulations being a member of our show. That means you could go and watch our member-only episodes. We're going to be dropping one tomorrow morning or late tonight. Either way, keep your head on a swivel for a new early peak cloak and dagger episode dropping tonight or early tomorrow morning. Thank you so much, Jimmy. Stephen McNeely is in the house. Wild Ute is in the house. Friends call me Sean. So many PATCs. Hard to keep up. You're one busy guy. Head not swiveling, it's spinning like a scene from The Exorcist. Oh, jeez. Whoa, that wasn't supposed to happen. That was supposed to happen. Buckshot Kid is in the house. Early Peak member. Mr. Hoosier, Montcastle. Death Leopard drummer wants... I can't play the drums. I can't play an instrument. I can't sing either, but it doesn't stop me from singing on this Rebel Outpost College Football channel. Mr. Hoosier, Montcastle, we're doing a special on the Hoosiers tomorrow. So catch our live show tomorrow. Tu Masta is in the house. Tony Rodriguez, Jersey, is in the house. Might be a Rutgers, might be a Scarlet Knight. Amazing in blue. Wow. Ryan, wow. Everybody's here. Jeff Jorgensen, the salt of the earth. Breaking news, breaking news, breaking news. Charlie Atwood representing the Nittany Lions like he always does. Thank you, Charlie, for coming on in. And Gary as well, Mr. Nittany Lion. Back in the corner house, the best college football show on YouTube. Thank you so much. The Evil Badger. Ryan Willie. I doubt there will be an agreement by the end of the week. The Evil Badger is not a believer. Chad Bracey. Payson Cougar fan. John Famlor. David M. Canes all day. Black Rain. Amy S. Go Utes. Live to fight another day. The Big Lubbock. Immaculate. Mr. Hawkeye. Cornelius Green. Cornelius Green. Salt of the Earth. Congo is in here. Rick Tungate is in here. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. The Hoosier fans are... Signetti's got them all fired up. And you guys, you Hoosier fans, you guys know how much I like that O'Rourke kid, the quarterback of the Ohio Bobcats that transferred to Indiana this year. Now, I like Sorsby. I like the guys you guys had last year, especially the second half of the season. But he transferred to Cincinnati. But I like the quarterback that you got in there. Hopefully he's healthy. He was nicked up 2 years ago. He was the MAC Player of the Year, even though he only played like 9 games. Had a knee injury with a couple weeks left to go in the season a couple years ago. I don't think he was fully recovered at the start of last season. I like the Hoosiers quarterback. And then... you guys got a new quarterback coming in, freshman quarterback. We'll talk about it tomorrow. We will talk about it tomorrow. Black Rain is in the house. David M., Terry Kane, preseason champions. AAR is in the house. Okay, we got a lot to get to. We got a stacked show. Absolutely stacked show. We're going to get to this monologue as quick as possible. I want to get to your comments. Especially your super chats. I want to get to your phone calls. So we will get to it right now. But we first, we're sitting here in March 12th. March 12th. We've been starting to talk about these college football teams. And we've got to hit the Irish. Tomorrow we're going to be hitting Indiana. We're going all through the country. Notre Dame had an all-star quarterback. This was from 247 Sports. A solid offensive line, a versatile running back, and a slew of tight ends. But the Irish should have been much better at receiver last season. The lack of a game breaker was frustrating, particularly when they got the best quarterback in the portal last year, Sam Hartman. Now, he was a little disappointing. I will admit that. But then again, man, the wide receiver room, yeah, they had good tight ends like they always do. But the wide receiver position was poor last year. Sam Hartman spreading the ball across the field, which should have led to more opportunities for a star to break through. A change was needed. So Marcus Freeman fired wide receivers coach Stuckey. The 38-year-old third-year head coach hired the best available coordinator and receivers coach to complement the newcomer, the quarterback from the Duke Blue Devils, Riley Leonard. We saw him play last year. He got injured. He screwed up that ankle. He was tough. He beat Clemson. They were challenging. The Duke Blue Devils were challenging the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. But he couldn't. He got re-injured on a vicious face mask. And they just couldn't keep up. Could not keep up. Riley Leonard, a breakout star at Duke and a possible future first-round NFL draft pick. Unsurprisingly, the 4 receivers enter the transfer portal. In total, 6 Notre Dame's top 8 pass catchers departed, including the top leaders Chris Tyree and Rico Flores Jr. Now, Rico Flores Jr., that hurts the Irish a little bit. I don't think they expected him to leave. Still, Notre Dame, now this is key, Notre Dame likely upgraded at the position with 3 veterans out of the portal and 2 blue chip freshman signees. And there is a returner from last year, a sophomore. We're going to get to it at the end of the article. I see great promise in one particular player. We'll see what happens. Was the receiver room what held Notre Dame back from its full potential in the win-loss column last season? Absolutely. And we talked about it before the season even started. I talked about it. I discussed it over and over again. That wide receiver room has been weak. They have not been able to get any additions in the portal. This year they did. Notre Dame made one of the more surprising offseason hires by pulling LSU offensive mastermind Mike Denbrock. This was the biggest get for Marcus Freeman. LSU's wide open offense led the nation in points, yards, with Heisman Trophy winner Jaden Daniels at quarterback last season. Kelly hired Denbrock to its first Notre Dame staff in 2010. Denbrock spent 7 years there in a variety of roles before leaving for Cincinnati in 2017. A couple years ago, Notre Dame floundered around with Tommy Rees as their offensive coordinator. You all know that I'm not a believer in Tommy Rees. I don't see the evidence of Tommy Rees being this mastermind on offense. Mike Denbrock. Oh yeah, we've seen a lot of evidence. We've seen a lot of evidence that he knows what he's doing. He spent 7 years before leaving for Cincinnati in 2017. He coached alongside Freeman at Cincy, where Denbrock coached the offense to a college football playoff appearance before rejoining Kelly at LSU. The Irish also polled Wisconsin's receiver coach Mike Brown to replace Stuckey, who failed to develop the Irish wide receivers into top-tier producers. Notre Dame restocked the shelves and upgraded the roster and coaching staff. Let's take a look at what it means for the Irish as they introduce a new-look offense, Mr. Denbrock, to a new bunch of wide receivers. The returnings, Jordan Fashion, the sophomore, Jaden Thomas, Jaden Greathouse. I think Greathouse has a chance to be a superstar. Dan Colsey, and then the rest. Newcomers, Chris Mitchell. Now, this is the cat that they got in the portal. We talked about it the day that Notre Dame got him. He was very highly sought after in the portal, and he went to Notre Dame. This was a big-time get for the Irish. Florida International, 64 catches, over 1,000 yards. Then they got Jaden Harrison from Marshall. And then they got some freshmen that are coming in. They got Bo Collins. Remember him from Clemson? 38 catches, 510 yards. Transfer. Collins and Mitchell and Harrison. The departures are Tari Flores is the one that hurts. Tobias Merriweather we'll keep an eye on him. He could be a great one as well. And then another couple others left. Notre Dame will utilize more 11 personnel. That's one running back, one tight end. Rather than the one running back, two tight end. The 12 personnel. But the Irish are confident it can lean on the two tight end seats in the fall with 3 deep room of tight ends when Mitchell Evans returns in the summer from a torn ACL he suffered last August. But they're going to be more wide open. I believe, they've got the wide receivers, the quarterback. The question is whether LSU's historic offense last season, third best in SEC history, was more the making of Jaden Daniels, who broke the FBS record for passing efficiency. And we talked about that last year, how great he was. I believe I had him as my Heisman, and of course he won it, no question about it. Or was it Denbrock's design? Notre Dame snag Dukes transferred Riley Leonard. You guys know how much I loved Riley Leonard last year. Unlike Sam Hartman, Leonard provides explosiveness if that ankle has healed. On the run and is slippery when pass rushers leaked into the backfield. He's also terrific, throwing from multiple arm angles akin to Daniels at LSU. Denbrock uses RPO, and the quarterback run game is intact, but my guess is there will be elements of Denbrock Cincinnati's offense, where the Bearcats use tight ends, intermixed with LSU where they used one tight end. Denbrock is 63-13 in his last 6 seasons as a coordinator. Not only did his LSU offense top the country last season, but at the Cincinnati, the Bearcats shattered school records for points and touchdowns while advancing to the CFP in 2021. Chances are the top receiver on Notre Dame's roster will also be the new name to fans, Jaden Thomas, the returner junior. Might be the safe bet to lead the unit. I don't think so. But this is what 247 Notre Dame believes. It is clear that the staff wanted to hit the reset button for the receiver room this offseason. There will be plenty of opportunities for a newcomer to step up. And at the end of the article, Jaden Greathouse, he had a fantastic start to last season. All the reports coming out of camp that this freshman was brilliant, but he battled a hamstring injury. He's the most natural pass catcher on the roster and has the most touchdowns among the returning receivers with 5. And he battled with that hamstring. Greathouse, Mitchell coming from Florida International, Riley Leonard, Denbrock. I think Notre Dame is set. 10-2 is the floor. And the ceiling, they win a playoff game. And they get to the Final Four. Remember, Notre Dame cannot qualify for a first-round bye because they're not in a conference. So the ceiling, I think Notre Dame is going to get to the Final Four. The floor, I think, is 10-2. Let me know how crazy you think I am. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish, we focused on the wide receiver room. We didn't go through a lot of the other positions. They are set. Great secondary. Benjamin Morrison, great cornerback. They're stacked. A little bit question on the linebackers. The defensive line was good last year. They did not have a whole lot of pass rush. But they believe they are set on everything. All eyes are on Mike Denbrock, Riley Leonard. Can that work in the wide receiver room for the fighting-itis. Now, let's get to the main story. Again, thank you. We are, each live show, we're going to be hitting these teams. We're going to be talking about it, what they need to do, what they need to improve upon to challenge for a conference title or possibly get to the playoffs or improve from last year. We're going to be doing that in every live show. Next live show will be the Indiana Hoosiers. Then we're going to be hitting LSU. Then we're going to be hitting the Houston Cougars. I've got them lined up. We're going to go we're just going to scattershot throughout the country. Expedition Greg, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your generosity to this channel. Expedition Greg, you are hereby knighted cloak and dagger once again. And Terry Kane, thank you so much. Holy smokes, thank you for your generosity. 5 gifted 5 memberships. Expedition Greg, Terry Kane, Jimmy Austin. Thank you so very much, Terry Kane. You are hereby cloak and dagger knighted once again. To those in the chat, before we get to our live breaking big story, Dr. Elsmith, Douglas Snyder, FSU 11, JB, Douglas, Zuckerfoos, and Matthew Farmer. Please thank Terry Kane. Please thank Expedition Greg for their generosity. You are all now cloak and dagger knighted. Congratulations. Now that you're all members to the show, you can watch our early P Cloak and Dagger membership only episodes, and we're going to be dropping a new one late tonight or really early tomorrow morning. So keep your head on a swivel. Thank you so very much. Okay. Breaking news. Breaking news. Breaking news. Sources. CFP on target to sort out new revenue split. Heather Dinich, senior ESPN writer. Holy smokes. College football playoff leaders are on target to come to a resolution by the end of the week on a proposed revenue distribution and governance structure in the next contract, sources told ESPN. But some important conversations remain before they agree to sign a lucrative TV deal with ESPN. So, to start this article off, according to ESPN, according to their sources, the revenue distribution model, the resolution for that looks like it's on target, and it looks like it's going to be done by the end of the week. It could be done by Thursday night. Commissioners, very important here. This is happening tonight. This is happening tonight. Commissioners of the Mountain West Conference, the Sun Belt, the Mid-American Conference, Conference USA, and the American Athletic Conference aren't keen on the proposed revenue distribution, which sources said would limit the Group of 5 conferences from making any substantial increase in revenue in the next contract, which would begin in 2026. One source described it as a slight uptick, nominal. Now, they were making about $1 million per school in the last contract. My math in regards to the previous reporting of the last week, I had it at every G5 school making about $1.8 million each. Now, my math could be wrong. Maybe there's details that we do not know. But maybe $1.8 million is correct, and they figure that's nominal, right? With inflation and everything. So the question is, back to the article. The question is if there is enough pushback to delay or derail the progress, or if those leagues, the G5, or if those leagues are simply in a tough spot and have to acquiesce or risk being excluded from the CFP. Sources have leaned towards the latter. Now, so the G5, it sounds like it's up to them, right? They can have playoff access for 2026 to 2031, something that I've been in support of. But maybe the money hasn't come in like they thought, and maybe they could get together and say, look, we can make a little bit more having our own tournament. What's interesting about this, and we'll go back to the article, the CFP's management committee was expected to have a conversation about it on Tuesday evening. One source said the group of 5 commissioners held their own separate call to address the issue. So again, the management committee is meeting tonight. G5 have had their own call. So keep your head on a swivel. Keep your head on a swivel. There might be some breaking news as we're doing this live show. So PATC community, if you see something out there, put it in the chat, and even more importantly, send it to me on a DM, direct message on X. And then give me the heads up in the chat room. You know, I've been a proponent of the group of 5 doing all they can to stay in the highest level of the playoffs because they're going to get the most money. But if it's a nominal uptick, if they're being squeezed, and they're not just being squeezed by the Big Ten and the SEC in this case. I mean, the ACC and the Big 12, they're not going to be fighting over the G5, right? As Ross Dellinger said, the Big Ten and the SEC are on one side, the ACC and the Big 12 are on the other, and the G5 are in the middle, just hoping that they can stay in the room. Could they create a tournament only for G5 that could produce as much revenue as they would get in this particular playoff format with the power conferences? I don't believe they can. So I believe they're going to stick. I believe the exposure, right? Having playoff access is worth a lot, but we shall see. We shall see, and we're going to know by the end of the week. We can know by tonight. Starting in 2026, ESPN is poised to spend an average of nearly $1.3 billion on the playoff for 6 seasons. The deal would include the final 2 years on the current CFP contract, plus a new 6-year agreement for the next iteration of the playoff, sources told ESPN. ESPN is the sole rights holder in the current 12-year contract, which expires following the 2025 season. The CFP will expand from 4 to 12 teams this fall. Now, we're going to go into it's bad cop, bad cop. Bad cop, bad cop. There hasn't been bad cop, good cop when it comes to the SEC and the Big Ten. The Big Ten and the SEC have made it clear the next contract will be more financially favorable than the current one, where 80% of the money is split evenly among the Power 5 leagues. The former contract. 4 power conferences remain following sweep and realignment, and the Big Ten and the SEC have a combined 34 teams. Sources told ESPN last month that discussions have centered around the SEC and the Big Ten earning somewhere between 25 and 30%. The 8 of the revenue pie. The ACC and the Big 12 would be next, and they would earn somewhere between 15 and 20. That leaves a smaller chunk, somewhere around 6 to 10% for the other leagues and nearly 1% for Notre Dame. The math isn't clean. Sources caution, as some money needs to go to expenses and to places like the other remaining independent, UConn. But those are the general financial ballparks being discussed. SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey has made it clear that the SEC has delivered 40% of the teams in the playoff, and he has been the primary driver behind the new revenue model. And that's what I keep talking about, bad cop, bad cop. And we reported this a couple weeks ago. Tony Petitti was pushing as many qualifiers as possible. AQs up to 4. Sankey has been taking the other route. He's been talking about it's getting us the highest percentage of the total revenue pie as possible. Both of them taking the extreme position on two important issues in squeezing everybody else. Bad cop, bad cop. Working in tandem. Both taking an issue. The 10 FBS commissioners are using Tuesday and Wednesday to discuss the details with their athletic directors, presidents, chancellors, and gather feedback. So today's feedback, tomorrow's feedback, and we're going to know a whole lot more on Thursday, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, the G5 commissioners are talking among themselves. One source said that in a perfect world, they could come to an agreement on the revenue and TV deal as early as Thursday, regardless of when there is a resolution. Multiple sources have said the details of a format in 2026 and beyond, from the number of teams to how they qualify. How many teams in the playoffs to how they qualify won't be settled until after the TV deal is done. In other words, after we get resolution on the distribution model and after they have officially agreed to accept the offer from ESPN. And finally, this is the PATC money shot of the article, because this is new, this is interesting. One clause that has been introduced and agreed upon, according to sources, is a look-in 2028 to give the commissioners a chance to reevaluate the contractual agreements. Get a load of this, the PATC money shot of the article. A look-in for 2028 to give the commissioners a chance to reevaluate the contractual agreements based on how the field and performance has unfolded to that point. There's also a clause that permits the timeline to be accelerated if there is material realignment. Again, we knew about the realignment clause for the look-in. If there is material realignment, in other words, if and when the ACC implodes, there's going to be a look-in. Yormark was pushing for that, where everything can be looked at again. But what is new in this article is they can have a look-in to reevaluate the contractual agreements based on how the field and performance has unfolded to that point. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, more than ever before, an example, 2000 and especially 2026, but even start right now, 2024. If you are, let's say, I'm going to bring up an example here. People are going to get upset, but let me get through it here. Let's say the Kansas Jayhawks win the Big 12 in 2024. As a Kansas State Wildcat fan, you are actually going to be rooting for Kansas in 2020 to do as well as possible in the playoffs, to run the field if possible, to win the whole thing. If you're an Oklahoma State Cowboy fan in 2026 and your team went 5-7, not a very good year. In 2026 with the new playoffs, and Texas Tech Red Raiders won the Big 12. As a Cowboy fan, you want the Red Raiders to go as far as possible, to be as successful as whatever Big 12 teams make the playoffs. Same with the ACC. Same with the G5. In other words, the look-in is not just for, let me show it to you again. The look-in is not just for material realignment, but based on how the performance on the field has unfolded to that point. A look-in in 2028. So 26, 27. Those are 4 years. Run up the score, ACC. Run up the score, Big 12. Run up the score, G5. If one conference is outperforming their distribution model, the look-in, there's a chance, according to what we're reading here, that it could be adjusted. So I'm a Gopher fan. I don't root for I wasn't rooting for Michigan. I wasn't rooting against Michigan. I just root for my Gophers. But now I can understand going forward, especially if your team didn't make it, if your team did not make the playoffs, you're going to want to push. You're going to want to cheer for the teams in your conference more than ever. I know some people already do that. Some people cannot think of doing that. I mean, I could never root for the Wisconsin Badgers or the Iowa Hawkeyes. But in this look-in clause for 2028 that Brett Yormark has been pushing isn't just about material realignment that might occur. It might be based on performance. And remember, the contract goes into 2032. So this is a victory, if you want to call it that, for the Big 12, for the ACC, even for the G5. That has not been reported on until tonight from Heather Dinich. Very, very interesting indeed. Now, before we get to your comments and before we get to your phone calls, we went through the Notre Dame. We talked about 30 seconds on the round table in Washington, D.C. If you want to call in and talk about it, that's cool. I'm not going to talk about it on this live show because we've got too much to talk about. And everybody's spinning their wheels on that. There really is there's no meat on the bone for me to talk about. We talked about Notre Dame. Yesterday we talked about Georgia. We talked about Ohio State the day before. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about Indiana. The next day LSU. The next day Houston. We're going to be going around the country scattershot talking about teams, what they want, what they need to do going into 2024. Then we talked about the breaking news. Heather Dinich, CFP is on target for revenue distribution resolution by the end of the week. It's on target. Do you think it's going to get done? Yes? No? Do you think Jim Phillips is going to hold out? What do you think is going to happen? Before we get to your comments and phone calls, and I'll be opening up the phone line soon here, I wanted to get to Dan Wetzel's article in Yahoo Sports. This was this afternoon. Will the SEC and the Big Ten greed ruin college sports as we know it? I'm not going to go through the whole thing. He talks about first the basketball. I believe. Well, I will put a link in the description. I'm not sure if I did or not, but if I didn't, I will do that later. You can read the whole article. He talks about how, the basketball tournament, how each team earns one share of revenue for the conference. It's dependent on performance. It is seemingly the exact opposite of how negotiations over the future of college football playoffs are going. Based on a series of recent proposals, the Big Ten and the SEC appear interested in guaranteeing rather than earning and codifying advantages, not simply winning them. They appear focused on vacuuming up every last crumb of money they can rather than consider what is best for the whole sport, including into the future. Then Dan Wetzel goes into what they proposed. The Big Ten and the SEC would receive as many as 4 automatic bids each. The Big Ten is pushing that. Guaranteeing the number 1 and number 2 seeds in the field. They both were pushing that, but thank goodness there was just too much blowback on that. Divvying up the revenue not on performance. How many teams get in and win games? But by predetermined split that greatly favors, you guessed it, the Big Ten and the SEC. Those leagues would get a combined 58% of the revenue, the ACC 17%, the Big 12 14.5%, and so on. The rich would get rich, more rich. It's a base distribution model, not so much a performance distribution model. The reason why I'm bringing up this article is now Wetzel does say it's particularly preposterous because based on the competitive strength and historic success of the Big Ten and the SEC teams, they would likely be able to earn those bids, buys, and even money. If so, good for them. But putting in writing, though, this becomes a play to break apart other conferences and pick off a few more of the most valuable brands. Right? This is a play to incentivize, we've talked about it, the ACC breaking up. Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, more incentive than ever to get out of the ACC. Then Wetzel did say, if you're a fan of a mid to lower level Big Ten and SEC team and think this is great, understand that everything is about the maximization of revenue, and you can and will be replaced at the adult table. At some point, the Buckeyes and Bama will realize they don't need you either. Now, this is where Dan Wetzel, I think, jumps the shark. And this was, this is what I talked about on my live show 2 live shows ago. Lately, the guardian job, the one who's supposed to protect college football. Lately, the guardian job has fallen to Greg Sankey. The commissioner of the SEC, especially as more of his peers arrive as short-term hires from pro sports or television. Now, who knows? Sankey was understandably frustrated when, in response to the SEC adding Oklahoma and Texas, a deal every conference would have jumped at, the ACC and the Big Ten and the Pac-12 formed an alliance to block a good playoff deal back in 2022. That was the original sin here. How much punishment is too much, though? Sankey was understandably frustrated. Sankey is a very smart guy. He understands history. He's always acted in a reasonable manner despite unfair criticism and been a good shepherd for college sports, leading in ways fans don't see. Again, every article about Sankey is about his brilliance. Don't blame him for taking on Oklahoma and Texas. But you know what? When the Big Ten did the USC thing and the Big 12 was surviving and everything got delayed, and of course nobody wanted to do the 2022 deal because other conferences were expanding to increase their value. Well, shame on them. But Sankey, very smart guy. He understands history. He's always acting in a reasonable manner. Been a good shepherd. All of it would go away if this path is followed. Follow Sankey. Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti, new to the college ranks, may not care if he's viewed as someone that blew up college athletics. Sankey presumably does. You see how this is done, ladies and gentlemen? It's done all the time with Sankey. No matter what Sankey does, he's playing bad cop. Tony Petitti's playing bad cop. But Sankey gets out of it once again, according to Yahoo Sports. It's unbelievable. And that's why I did the live show a couple of nights ago on Sankey. He can complain, he can push for stuff, but it never... Nobody in college football reporters takes a shot at him. He's pushing for the 58%, for the base distribution model. He's pushing for that, Wetzel. He's pushing for that. But it can't be linked to Sankey. Tony Petitti? He don't care. Sankey? It's not too late to pull back on these tilted playoff proposals. It's not too late to remember that just because you can seize more turf, it doesn't mean you should. It's not too late to acknowledge that contracting the sport will impact the bottom line, even for the Big Ten and SEC. So, again, I just wanted to point that out. Sankey just comes out of it smelling like a rose. Once again, even though he's doing the same thing Petitti is, he's just taken the extreme position on one, Tony Petitti on the other. It's bad cop, bad cop. It isn't. Sankey is, he's the one, he's the guardian, he's the one, he's been reasonable. He's frustrated and he should be, Tony Petitti, he's just coming in to Hilarious. John Till, thank you for the super chat. Big 12 had a TV deal. Didn't need to kill the pack. Big 12 did not have a TV deal. The Big 12 did not have a TV deal. I mean, they had one, so did the pack, but they moved up their negotiations, their exclusive window, ahead of the pack and took the offer that the pack was offered by ESPN. And of course, the Big 12 is going to look out for themselves, just like Sankey looked out for himself. The Big 10 looks out for... Everybody has to look out for themselves, but only Sankey seems to... I don't get it. I don't get it. I'm never going to get it. I'm never going to get it. But thank you for the super chat, John Till. I appreciate it. I do appreciate the super chat. They didn't kill the Pac-12. They just... Pac-12 could not get a media deal with any decent exposure. So Colorado left. Then Arizona left. And then the kill shot was the Big Ten with Oregon and Washington. I don't know. I don't get it. I do not get it. But anyways, we're going to open up the phone lines. You can let me have it. Let me know how wrong I've got it once again. Phone lines are open. 763-260-1333, 763-260-1333. Talk about anything college football. Notre Dame, talk about your team. What do you want to see in spring practice? And do you think the CFP, is it on target? According to Heather Dinich, ladies and gentlemen, breaking news this afternoon. CFP on target to sort out new revenue split. And once again, ladies and gentlemen,
call from
Jeff Fuller.
I did not get the name.
Yeah, Greg, Jeff Fuller here. Give me a second to pull my bike to the side of the road and chat with you here.
No problem. Thanks for calling. The floor is yours.
Yes, sir. Just out here cycling in beautiful Alabama.
Woo!
72 degrees right now. Loving it.
Beautiful.
Let me switch you to my... All right. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you. Yep, you're coming in good.
Okay, great. So to that super chat, did he really say that? I mean, I know I've seen some people saying that. I mean, what forces are behind that idea?
We're happy. We can't hear you. We can't hear you, Jeff. Jeff?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now, Greg?
Yeah. We could not hear anything that you said, but we can hear you now. All right, Jeff, I'm going to have to hang up. We can't hear you.
I'm sorry, man. All right.
No problem. Thank you. Yeah, just couldn't get through there. That bike lane in Alabama. Beautiful weather. John Till, that's my point. Once they had the TV deal, there was no need to burn the city and pillage its resources. Truck stop boys hit us with a hate crime. Okay, John. Thank you for the super chat, John. I do appreciate it. They did something that everybody else would have done. They tried to improve the value of their conference. And they did so. But I do appreciate super chat, John Till. Thank you so very much.
call from
Jeff Fuller with a good signal now.
Jeff Fuller with a good signal. The floor is yours.
Yes, sir, Greg. So just commenting on the super chat about the Big 12 killing the Pac-12. Again, I don't know where these ideas are coming from. The Pac-12 was dead and bleeding out, mortally wounded by the Big Ten and Fox taking USC and UCLA but I mean, the Pac-12, they killed themselves. At any point, they could have
Yeah.
expanded into
Yes,
the Big
sir.
12. They
Yep.
could have taken BYU, a couple other brands to sort of solidify themselves. I mean, it was arrogance. It was bad management by the president, by Larry Scott, by George Kliavkoff. This idea that the Big 12 killed the Pac-12. Give me a break. If anything, it was a mercy kill at that point.
Yeah.
You know, they were on the ground bleeding out. As far as you go with Sankey, you know, I live in Alabama. I am 98% a BYU fan and 2% a Bama fan.
Yeah.
I've lived in the South. I've lived in Georgia. I've lived in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Lived in Tuscaloosa. I've lived in Iowa. I sort of understand the cultures of the different fan bases, and I feel like you have a sort of a Big Ten bias on the Sankey stuff. That the SEC, I think Sankey gets a pass for a couple reasons. Number one, he's the sort of longest standing commissioner. He's stuck with it. He's from the college sports world, but he also is a good executive and sort of knows how to work the media as well. Beyond that, though, you know, the SEC has sort of stayed cohesive with their strategy, with their makeup. You know, they're about, you know, big brands in contiguous states, and it's the Southeastern Conference. Other conferences have done different things. Pretty much all the other conferences have really expanded. You know, the ACC, out of desperation, went all the way to you know, the Bay Area, and took someone who bought themselves their way in with SMU. The Big Ten, you know, the Big Ten, there are a lot of big fan bases, and that's sort of what the Big Ten has always been. Really big alumni bases, big enrollments, big research institutions. But, you know, in the upper Midwest and sort of into the Northeast. And then the expansion, you know, I know it was reactionary to Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC, but, you know, I think the Big Ten just sort of lost their cohesiveness and their identity, and it's sort of become the conference of money. I think that's sort of the national idea about the Big Ten now, is it's just all about money. How can we get the bigger? And Kevin Warren, I mean, he did so much damage to the identity and the brand. You know, his negotiation tactics. You know, do whatever he has to do to get more money. And you know, I think sort of the more old school reporters maybe sort of view Sankey with a little more patience, because the SEC has sort of stayed true to its identity. They've gotten strong. They've grabbed some brands over the years, yes, but most of those brands were fleeing Texas, and sort of the Texas running the big, you know, the SWAC, and then the Big 8 and Big 12 merger. So I want to sort of add that sort of tidbit to you, maybe as a somewhat of an SEC apologist. But
well, I'm not coming at this from a Big Ten bias, because I had extreme issues with Kevin Warren and said it in real time, and I have problems with Tony Petitti, and I do not. How do I say this? I do not take any umbrage. What Greg Sankey has done with SEC on the expansion, I don't take any.
Sure.
He did what he had to do. When I'm taking shots
Texas
at,
and Oklahoma come to you, you say yes.
Let me finish. What I take umbrage at Greg Sankey is he can't keep his mouth shut. He's always taking shots at everybody else, and he's been continuing to do so. So I'm calling him out because nobody else will. And so that doesn't have anything to do with the SEC word being in front of him or being in back of him. That's just him being a commissioner taking shots at everybody else's actions. Oh, you shouldn't have delayed this. You should. He's constantly doing it. And yes, I'm going to take a little elbow at the reporters, because they never bring it up. They never bring up this Greg Sankey that continually takes shots at people, and nobody takes a shot at him. So being the Rebel Outpost channel, I feel it's my obligation to do so.
And I can respect that. I think a lot of the national reporters, they sort of like the elbows. They like the drama, something to report in the off season. And so, they may give him a pass for that, or they may have bias themselves. I agree with you, Sankey. He does take some unnecessary shots. He's taken veiled shots at your mark, and I think he will, stand his ground and take some shots, sometimes unnecessarily, and maybe doesn't get called on it all the time. But I just wanted to add that sort of piece of, what sort of the SEC stands for, and maybe some people give him a little bit more slack because of that. But hey, great show, love it.
Appreciate it.
I really hate to see where this is all heading. I agree with Dan Wetzel that this is too much about power, money, and control.
Yeah.
And if it, we've talked before about how I fear that it's really going to, cut off your nose to spite your face.
Yeah.
Some schools may get a bigger piece of the pie, but the pie will shrink, and that's not good business. We need win-win mentalities in college football to let it grow. So, Thanks, Greg.
Beautiful. Thank you for the call, Jeff. Appreciate it. Great call once again by Mr. Fuller. Holy smokes. Yeah, I don't have anything against the actions of what Sankey has done. I don't like how he communicates. It's brutal, and the free pass that he's given basically by the press. And this Dan Wentz article is the prime example of that. That's why I showed it. Gorb, I wouldn't accept anything but equality for the A4. So Gorb is saying no deal. No deal. We're not taking anywhere close to that distribution model of 58%, 32%. So my question is, and we'll get to it a second here.
Call from
Steve.
I couldn't hear that name.
Steve.
Steve, thank you, Steve. Can you hold on 1 second?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Bearcat. Mooncat, thank you for the super chat. Big 10 killed the Pac. Big 12 got leftovers. I think that's it for the super chat. Thank you, Mooncat. Thank you, John Till. Thank you, Gorb. I got a question before we get to Mr. Bearcat Steve. What would the reaction be for the Big 12 fan base, ACC fan base, if there is a resolution by the end of the week that has the revenue pie cut at about 58% to 32% among the Big 10 and the SEC, and then the ACC and the Big 12? Would you be happy that a resolution happened, or would you say they should have walked away from the table? What would your reaction be if it actually happened? Steve, thank you for your patience. Mr. Bearcat, the floor is yours.
Well, I'll take the high road in what you just said, Greg, because I'll trust your Mark to do what he sees best in the situation as far as the revenue share.
Got it. Okay.
When you were talking about possibly if the group of five would go to their own playoff system, and you brought up the number 1.8, it ran through my mind that Warner's not getting into this stream with Fox and ESPN not to have some college football content. That's what I believe. They've got TBS, TNT, and if you've noticed this week, they're going to focus True TV on some more sports-oriented programming. With that being said, the group of five, and believe me, being a Cincinnati fan, I can vouch for it. They get put on ESPN. They get ESPNU, I'm sorry. They get put on CBS Sports Network. what if Warner comes in and says, hey, we want a couple or 3 games per weekend. We want, if you guys are going to your own playoffs, here's some money. And then, of course, Fox with FS2 and CBS Sports Network and ESPNU, they're all there. Could you see, Greg, that they could get to, and maybe even an Amazon or somebody comes in, could you see where they could get to more than the 1.8, Greg? Or is it just going to be so diluted?
You're talking about the G5, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my question at the start. I don't think so, but I'm wondering. But I could be wrong, Steven. And I'm wondering, have they had any? Has the G5 commissioners, have they gone a little bit off the the highway, and have they had communications with a Warner Brothers or Amazon or something to say what does this look like if we went off by ourselves? Do you think they've had that communication? I don't know, man. I don't know if they could get more than that or not per school. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if they've went down that road yet. I'm sure there's been discussions, just because as perilous as everything is with them. But it kind of. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when TBS did college football.
Yes. Yep.
And of course they have their Major League Baseball game once a week. They have NHL. They have NBA. Probably never going to be able to jump into the NFL, but I just got a feeling if they're going to get into streaming with Fox and ESPN, that they would like to have some college football, and this might be a way. And again, people laughed at Greg. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's okay.
Who's covering the ACC 1-2 games a week now? That everybody's laughing that they shouldn't even be in the college football college football broadcasting. My goodness, that's terrible. Somebody help me out in the chat or something. But they could. I don't know. I don't know if they could get over that 1.8.
Yeah.
But it's just something that came into my mind when you started talking about it. I just got to believe that. I mean, TBS or TNT, one or the other, got exclusive Final Four again this year. This is like the 4th year in a row that CBS doesn't have the Final Four. And I read an interesting article where CBS wouldn't even have the tournament if it wasn't for, back then, Turner Sports. So I don't know. I think they may be able to be a player. Could enough revenue be generated for the group of 5? I don't know. But with that, Greg, I just kind of wanted your opinion on that after you came up with the 1.8, if they could get to, could they get the exposure, I guess, is the other thing.
Yeah, and I don't think they would. I think they would get, in my opinion, I think they would get more exposure with everybody talking about them in regards to, who's going to represent the G5 in the playoffs. The whole thing, I think it's a better deal for them to stick as long as they have the access, and it sounds like the door is open for them. But, we're not going to know until, for a couple more days.
And it'll be interesting to see the numbers that everybody agrees on, Greg.
Yep.
I mean, it really will. Who's where, who's getting what percentage, and what the reasoning is. CW, that's what I was trying to think of, Greg. The CW network. I couldn't. Don't get old, and don't stop at the 19th hole after you play. The
19th hole. Yeah.
All right, my friend.
Got it.
Thanks for taking my call. Just wanted to kind of throw that at you, see what you thought.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Mr. Bearcat, Steve. we're not going to get into it much. We're not going to really get into it at all here. The ACC did another court filing in Leon County. And it reveals that Florida State has requested from the league information and documents regarding what the ACC knew about college playoff football committee's decision to exclude FSU. I'll put it up on the board, put it up on the screen. All documents and communications related to the decision by the college football playoff committee to exclude Florida State from the championship. This is what Florida State wants to know. Communications, the ACC had. When did they know? What did they know? I think that's pretty much a fishing expedition there, but I don't think they're going to get much out of that. I just wanted to show you that. It's we could hear something tonight or tomorrow on the G5 because they're meeting tonight. And I think they're going to stay in. I think they're going to be part of the playoff axis. Again, when it comes to this, what I've been calling an obsession about the Super League, again, I see no evidence of that happening. Now, if we get to the end of the week and we don't get any resolution on distribution model, then I know I'm going to be getting a whole bunch of phone calls and chats and direct messages talking about this once again. But if we do get an agreement on the distribution model, and if there is a final official acceptance of the ESPN offer when it comes to the CFP, then that split is dead, at least for 8 years.
Call from
JD.
JD, Mr. Seminole, the floor is yours. What do you got to say, sir?
How you doing, sir?
Doing good. I saw that there was another, I don't know what you even call it, motion brief, somebody, somewhere, Leon County. Do you know anything about it?
It's just procedural stuff, like
Okay.
we talked about. There's going to be a bunch of this. A couple lawyers had a chance to kind of go over it, but one in particular, he did say that it's pretty clear that both the ACC and FSU are going for broke. They're the ACC is in their motion. I think it was filed yesterday and it was published today that they don't want FSU to have anything. I mean, access to nothing. And that's typical in these type of filings.
Mm-hmm.
Ask for the world, don't expect to get it, and then FSU, wants everything, every bit of documentation, communication. They want to know about the votes that were taken, who actually, was a party to the vote. I think that's in there. And then, yes, did the ACC know anything about the college football playoff scenario? I don't know if it was on here, X, or, somewhere else, maybe on one of the message boards. But somebody made a really good point the other day where the ACC in their or FSU in their filing questioning venue the other day, the filing that FSU made in North Carolina the other day.
Yep.
Concerning venue. Somebody had pointed out that the ACC talked about the reason they didn't take a vote was because of the time constraints and the seriousness of the matter, and they needed to file to gain venue and so on. All that's I guess you'd say you'd understand their point, but they sure had a lot of time to put a 149-page filing together.
Yeah.
That took a long time.
Yeah.
And to not get a vote, to use that same argument that you didn't take the time to get a vote from your members and that you can get one retroactively, there's just a lot of things that don't hold water. There were a couple of lawyers on the FSU side that don't really get on Twitter as much. They were pretty hesitant, or maybe not in the camp that believed FSU was going to get venue in Florida. Some of them are starting to change their opinions now. Mm-hmm. They think the North Carolina case is going to get stayed, and there's one in particular. But anyway, I was actually calling about the G5 proposal of a separate playoff.
Well, there's an option. Are they looking at it? There's no reporting that they are, but they're meeting tonight. The G5 commissioners. I think they're probably gonna say, yeah, we got to take this deal that's been given to us, but we'll see.
I think it's a fantastic idea, because how many G5 schools go to bowl games, and those bowl games are spread all throughout December. Okay, mm-hmm. So you're going to essentially take a lot of those bowl games away, but then in turn you're going to set up G5 schools. They don't mind playing on a Tuesday or a Wednesday night or a Thursday night. So if you set up a separate playoff during the month of December on weeknights or odd times, just the gambling aspect of the process, I don't know what the numbers that Division II or FCS get on ESPN, but I would assume you'd be able to magnify that. And an organized playoff that's being played and not in competition with the standard college football playoff, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think they ought to give it a trial run for a couple of years. Maybe they could put something in, a provision in the playoff that they can get access to the playoff in the future, and they give this a trial run. I think, I would assume, or at least I would hope, the SEC and Big Ten or just the Power Four would, maybe give them an opt-in opportunity later, but just give it a try. See if they can monetize it enough for themselves to make more money. Because what were you guys talking about? Is it $1.8 million per school? Is that what it is?
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah.
It's like in high school. How many different classifications are there per state? If they're all in the same classification, it doesn't mean quite as much. But if you go ahead and create separate classifications, because we understand a G5 team is never going to win the national championship or never going to win the college football playoff. It's not going to happen. So let's create a separate classification if they're willing to do it, and let's give it a trial run. There's a lot of complaints right now, and I'm not complaining at anyone. I do the same thing. I complain probably too much. That we're going down a road and we don't know that, this is not necessarily the path that we want to go. Well, good news is all it takes is a vote, and they can change the path. This isn't like an act of Congress to change the path they're going down. If some of these changes are going to be so detrimental to the sport, you can reverse course. I'm assuming a majority vote will take care of that. And so I'm not as alarmed by that. I do see the hypocritical nature in some in the media and even some in the coaching aspects. Don't get me started on Saban. I think he's the greatest coach of all time, but I think he's a hypocrite now.
Yeah.
And I'm now going to be the enemy of some people when I say that. Yeah. But he revolutionized the process of dropping bags. There was NIL in Alabama before NIL was legal. And I know you don't want to go down that road. I'm going to stop right there. But anyway.
Yeah.
But when it's not to the benefit of, well, let me rephrase it. Let me back up here. The media members that are associated with the SEC and the Big Ten and so on, I don't see them asking for those conferences to redo their media deals to spread the wealth around, okay, or spread anything else around. They champion their own conferences, but then they talk about the big picture of the sport is going down the wrong path. Well, where were you 3 or 4 years ago? Where were you 5 years ago? Okay, you didn't say anything then, but now with the breakup of the ACC and the changes in the other conferences and so on, we're at the point we just got to let the sport morph wherever it's going to go, see where it stands, and then if changes need to be made, that's what has to happen. Mm-hmm. And I know I've changed my perspective, but where I was lamenting some of the issues even as of a few weeks ago, but we are where we are. Let's get this done, and let's the limbo that we're in, let's just get it over with, and let's just see where we are when the dust settles. You know?
Yeah.
Anyway,
the G5 thing. You say take do a trial basis, whatever. I think if the G5 went separate, I don't think that door is going to open for them ever again to come back, right? I think once they leave, that door shuts. But the most important part of it is economics. The G5, if the door is open right now for them to still be a part of this expanded playoffs going forward, but if they've done the work, I don't know if they have or not, but let's say they've done the work with potential media partners for a G5 playoff, and the answer comes back is that they don't make this money, they're not going to do it because they need that money to keep their athletic departments churning, right? So, but I don't know, JD. I don't know. I don't know if they could make that money separate. Maybe they could. I was expecting G5 schools at the end of the day in this new playoff system to be making $3 to $4 million each, but that's not true. They're going to be making less than $2 million each, so that might change the math. Who knows? But JD, go ahead.
Well, what about this? What about you do a hybrid of the two? What about if they do a G5 playoff and the G5 keeps all of that money, and then there is a certain percentage, some type of supplemental for them having their own playoff, and still have one qualifier for the college football playoff. So it might mean that the G5 goes to a 10-game conference schedule, and then there's an additional couple of games on their schedule that somehow is cross-conference play where you can generate more viewership and try to gain extra income by that, extra revenue. I think a hybrid of the two, because I agree with you. If there's no guarantee that they would have access in the future, well, they're not going to give that up. But if the P4 would at least allow the G5 an opportunity to make up the difference on their own, but not shut them out, I mean, that's I can't see where you want the P2 to become villains where they want to get a piece of the G5 playoff. Well, that's where people are going to start to check out. Anyway, I'm doing a lot of rambling.
Got it.
So I'm going to go ahead and get off.
I appreciate the call, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks so much.
Mr. Seminole, JD. Again, breaking news this afternoon. Heather Dinich, ESPN. Sources: CFP is on target to sort out new revenue split. We've gone through the article early in the monologue. If you missed it, go watch it back at the start of the show. We also talked about the Notre Dame Fighting Irish for 2024. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about the Indiana Hoosiers. The next day, LSU. The next day, Houston. This, if it happens, it's big news, right? Big news. But will anybody in the ACC and the Big 12 be happy if this happens? Let's say it's a 58 to 32% split. 58% of the revenue, SEC in the Big 10, 32 Big 12. You might be happy that something got done, but then again, you won't be happy if, this is a unequal revenue sharing at a base distribution concept. Man, that is not, that hasn't happened before. Not healthy for the sport. Let me know with your phone calls.
Call from
Crab cakes and football.
Mr. Terrapin. Crab cakes and football. The floor is yours. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good today. How are you doing, man?
Doing good.
I got a question. For some reason, I've never asked this question. How does the voting work for the college football playoff? Is it just Sankey and Petiti, and or is it like individual teams get a vote?
We don't know. We don't know, and that is. I'm gonna put up on the screen here. Let's just see here. College football. This is from Heather Dinich. Now, crab cakes and football. College football playoff leaders are on target to come to a resolution by the end of the week on a proposed revenue distribution and governance structure in the next contract. So the governance structure, the voting rights, how are the votes weighted? Who has what power? Supposedly, Heather Dinich says that's on target for resolution by the end of the week. So we're going to know that answer possibly by the end of the week. We don't know it now. In the previous contract, it needed to be a unanimous decision on how to change things, and so we'll find out. But I don't know what it is right now, sir.
Because as you know, the SEC's got 16 teams. Big Ten's got 18 teams.
Yep.
And then you got another 16-team league with the Big 12, and then you got this mosh pot over here of the ACC.
Yep.
Currently sitting at 17, and then you still got Notre Dame as a vote. And I do believe you got Washington State, Oregon State, and UConn out there with votes, potentially. So they might be outvoted. That's why we're not getting anywhere.
Yeah. In the previous governance structure, not about changing the college football playoffs. And I used to know this stuff. I don't remember it anymore. But it was like each school got a vote, and then each conference got 3 votes, and so you're right. Maybe they are outvoted in that regards, but
I was just thinking about that because I remember at one point in time, the Big Ten and the SEC had more teams, and they were like, okay, more teams, they're gonna get their way. But then they started bringing in the SMUs, and then you had to, everything fell apart, and then they brought in the Cincinnati's, BYU, Houston, and UCF. So that made them powerful, and so now the numbers game is kind of gotten wonky, and I think it's made it either so even or very close that no one clearly has the power. Regardless, I know the 2 leagues have like the Ohio States, the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Michigans, and everything else. But when it comes to actual votes, I think they're equal, and it's that everybody gets 1 vote regardless of the name on their jersey. So I think that's the issue here. I think this is becoming something that's flown under the radar a little bit. And I think that's the reason why the G5 is still having struggles to get that $3 million or two, whatever they really wanted.
Yeah.
Because of the dynamics that are going on between the 4 leagues, which eventually is going to become 3, or maybe it stays 4 and it's just a weaker version of the ACC, whichever way they go with that. But I was just wanting to ask you that question. That's all I had for you today, Greg.
Yeah,
it's a light day for me.
I appreciate it, sir. Thank you for the call.
All right, man.
Yep.
No problem.
Yeah, it's kind of muddy waters when it comes to how they're voting, how they're deciding on this. It's just a lot of power moves right now. We're going to know a lot about the governance structure by the end of the week if it gets resolved. And then we can go from there. But right now it's just muddy. We don't know. We don't know how they're deciding on any of this stuff. To change the current college football playoff format, it needed to be a unanimous 11-0 vote. You needed the 10 commissioners and Notre Dame. Not anymore. Not from 2026 going forward. So there needs to be a governance structure going forward on that. And there was a great question here, and now I lost it. Somebody asked, the look-in clause is pretty cool, but will the Big 12 be able to get that look-in clause to happen at the time, like let's say 2026, 27, if they can't get enough votes because of the voting structure, which is a great question. Don't know the answer. Do not know the answer on that. T-Town Hawk, you're the one who asked that question. Great question. P2 probably wants 58% of the voting rights. That might be a very accurate statement. Everything's probably going to follow along. Everything's going to dog walk with each other, right? Distribution, voting rights, hand in hand, access, automatic qualifiers. Yeah. But on the G5, no problem. On the G5, I still think they're going to keep their playoff access. I've been talking about that since August 2022. I don't think there's going to be a breakaway for 2026. In other words, I don't think the SEC and the Big Ten are just going to say bye and go on their merry way for 2026. Maybe in 2031, maybe in 2032. If I see evidence of that at Peek Around the Corner, I will be covering it. But there has been a deep obsession among college football fans. Is it going to happen? Yes, it is going to happen. They're going to break away. We've got Josh Pate saying that the Big Ten and the SEC are just throwing out these outlandish proposals so they can say at the end of the day, we tried, and then they go away. Then they split up. I don't think any of that's happening. I wish somebody would tell me that it was, but everybody I talk to says that's not what's going on. Big Ten and the SEC are playing hardball, and they're playing bad cop. They're trying to get the most out of they can. And this should not come as a surprise, especially if you're part of the PATC community. This has been the great gold rush of 2026. We said elbows would be flying on the distribution model, that the SEC and the Big Ten would put all their chips in the middle of the table. They would use their power to get more money. What has surprised me, the one thing in this great 2026 gold rush that surprised me at PATC, we did not think that $1.3 billion would be the number. And we did not think that ESPN would be the sole holder of all the playoff games, the 11 playoff games. We thought there'd be at least 2 media partners in it distributing playoff content, and we thought that number would be close to 2 or a little bit over $2 billion. So those are the things that we were surprised on. The media market tightened, obviously. We all know that. It tightened. But the elbows, what the SEC and the Big Ten are doing, not surprised at all. Not surprised at all. Going for the exclusive rights for a first round game where the SEC and the Big Ten hold exclusive rights, that surprised me as well. That was really stupid. Anyways. Joe, 2095, prediction of revenue split if there is an agreement. I believe that the revenue split will be real close or on the button in what has been reported. 58%, 32%, and 10%. Notre Dame's going to get what ACC has, and then the remaining goes to the G5 schools. That's going to be a little bit more than $1 million, a little south of $2 million each for those schools. I think, now, let me say this. I would be shocked, Joe, I would be shocked if there was an agreement at the end of the week in it numbers. The only way that I could see, Joe, the only way that I could see those numbers, the revenue split, if there's an agreement, the only way I could see it not being around 58/32 is if, lo and behold, they came up with the playoff format. They decided on that. That's also being decided on. That also is, we're going to have resolution on that. And the Big Ten and the SEC get their 4 qualifying spots. And then the percentages will come closer than 58-32. That's the only scenario I see the revenue split being different than what's being reported right now. So again, my answer is 58-32. More like market forces. More like market forces. ESPN had that exclusive window. They put out an offer, and I think there was third-party talks between the Big Ten and Fox and CBS and NBC, and I think they probably just got the answer. ESPN wanted to control the championship game and the semifinal games. ESPN, you got to... The New Year's 6 bowl games are going to be part of the playoffs. They're going to be the 4 quarterfinal games and the 2 semifinal games, I believe. And ESPN controls those rights of those bowl games. So, for the next 5 or 6 years. So, I think there's a lot to it, but I was surprised it was that low. The power ESPN has is insane. And I got a feeling in about 5 years from now, 3 years from now, somebody else is going to be coming into that college football space in a big way. Amazon, Apple, somebody is going to finally crash in a big way. or they're going to buy ESPN. So, anyways, we're going to close up the live show for tonight. I want to thank everybody for coming on in Tuesday night. Spectacular show, breaking news, Heather Dinich, breaking news. They are on target, according to ESPN, to get a resolution for the revenue split by the end of the week. It could be Thursday. And tonight, the G5 commissioners are talking. So a lot of things going on this week. I want to thank everybody for your generous donations, the incredible comments in the chat room. Once again, the PATC community brought it, and the wonderful phone calls that we had. Tuesday, March 12th. Very significant week when it comes to modern college football, what it's going to look like in the years ahead. Are we actually going to get a resolution? Do you agree with Heather Dinich that we're going to get a resolution on the revenue split and the governance? I think we are. I believe we are. We'll see what happens. If you're new to the show, or if you haven't done it so yet, please hit the subscribe button. Subscribe to our channel. Have your notifications on. We could come on live at any time. We could come on live again tonight if there's breaking news, especially around G5. So keep your head on a swivel. Smash the like button. Thank you so very much. We're going to be coming on live tomorrow, so stay close to PATC. Until next time. From all of us at Peek Around the Corner, college football's Peek Around the Corner, to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very